cracking away games and right young life.
Broadcasting live to the world. Now, it's Sheila Zielinski.
This is a very sinister Luciferian eugenics plan. These spineless weasels preach what people want to hear. They replace repentance with dreams of the good life. Mindless minions. Dying daily, taking up your cross, suffering and sacrificing have been superseded with name it and claim it. And as dark as I know it looks out there, the good news is that God is advancing his kingdom. And it's very exciting to be a part of his great commission.
It's Sheila Zielinski.
The Sheila Zielinski Show, the only show to give you the truth behind the headlines, prophecy, and the deeper things of God. Now, here is your host, end-time watchwoman, Sheila Zielinski.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this Friday, March 6, 2015 edition of the Sheila Zielinski Show. I'm your host, Sheila Zielinski. Thank you all for tuning in, and a big shout-out to all the listeners at Worldwide Christian Radio, as well as a special hello to my friend Mike Gunther, who I know is listening. Thankfully, Mike got me hooked on this man many years ago, and I became an instant fan of my guest, an incredible, brilliant, gifted man of God who is going through an incredible trial. Many of you have heard bits and pieces of this most famous and notable creation speaker, Pastor Kent Hovind, known as Dr. Dino, a powerful advocate of biblical creationism who has already served almost 100 months in federal prison, and as of this Monday, March 2nd, is in a new federal trial where he now faces spending the rest of his life behind bars. You're going to hear the whole story right from the horse's mouth because he is my guest today live from prison in Florida where he's being held. Dr. Hovind, welcome to the program. It is indeed an honor. It is a distinct pleasure to have you on. Tell our listeners, especially those who may not know of your case, tell them your story. You have the floor. Go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm honored. My name's Kent Hovind. I was a high school science teacher 15 years and became an evangelist 25 years ago, teaching on creation, evolution, dinosaurs, and the Bible. The website is drdino.com. I've done 100 debates against atheists at universities. I tear them up sweetly in Christian love, of course. And about 15 years ago, the IRS began targeting our conservative ministry. I answered all the letters. I did everything right as far as I know. All the details are on 2peter3.com. The number 2, the word Peter, and the number 3. And they can check up there. Anyway, so they arrested me and my wife, and I've been in jail now for 100 months. I was supposed to go home 3 weeks ago. But they filed a new charge now of mail fraud, which carries a 20-year sentence, and conspiracy to commit mail fraud, which is another 20-year sentence. It's just a total of 6 charges of just absolutely stupid stuff that carries a total of over 100 years that they could put me in prison for, theoretically. Okay, that's the risk. So we've been in court now the last 3 days. We're off today, praise God. The judge had some conflict, but we go back to the federal courthouse in Pensacola, and then the government is going to finish presenting their persecution, and then we get to give a defense starting next Monday. So really be in prayer. I want God to get great glory through all of this. I did not commit a crime to go to prison the first time, and I certainly did not commit a crime to go back to trial this time. It is obviously just pure vindictiveness, just vengeance, and it's evil. And, I feel bad for the people coming against me. Psalm 105, God said, don't touch my anointed, do my prophets no harm. And I don't know if I'm anointed or a prophet, but I certainly have been trying to serve the Lord for 46 years, and I love Him and I want to please Him with everything. This has been extremely hard in many ways, but it's been extremely good in many ways, too. Now, if in the future more Christians in America or other countries have to go to prison, which I feel certain they will, maybe God has done this for me to show, hey, you can do it. It is hard, but hey, half the Bible is written from prison or captivity or by people who experienced one of those. And so it is amazing the way God works. It has just been really, really cool. I've been able to lead over 700 men to the Lord. 2 days ago, my cellmate, they put me in isolation again for 3 days, but they happened to have every isolation room full. And so I was in there with another young man, 19 years old. I had to sleep on the floor, little bitty 8-foot or 7.5 foot by 9.5 foot room, but 2 of us in there, plus the toilet and the sink. But I was able to lead him to the Lord. He was just explained the salvation to him. Said, "Whoa, I need that." I said, "Yes, son, you do indeed." So God has been amazingly good in this whole thing.
Dr. Hovind, for those that aren't familiar with the original charge, because I think your name often gets thrown in the mix, it's synonymous with tax issues, tax evasion, tax protester comes up. You've spent 8.5 years in jail for what is called structuring, which has nothing to do with taxes. Now, what's interesting is the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service Commissioner, John Koskinen, just recently came out and issued an apology to Americans for misusing structuring against Americans and seizing bank accounts. Congress passed this law to deal with money launderers. Explain to us what your understanding of structuring is.
Well, structuring was a stupid law that Congress passed years ago that said they started off, they said if you take out over $10,000 of your own money out of your own bank or put it in, then the bank has to fill out a form, called a cash transaction report, CTR. Okay. So the drug dealers said, well, hey, I don't want that report filled out on me. So they would go in the morning and get $9,000, go in the afternoon and get $9,000. So Congress, in their great wisdom, passed another stupid law called the structuring law that said if you have 2 or more transactions in one day that total over $10,000, but they each are less than $10,000, obviously you are structuring your transactions to avoid the reporting requirement. And that's a 5-year sentence in prison. Well, my wife would go to the bank about once every 2 weeks and take out money for our needs at the ministry. We were buying and remodeling several old houses in the neighborhood to have room to expand if we needed it. And so we hired college students and say, here's $500, go buy shingles for this house or go buy plywood, whatever. So it grew from about $1,000 every couple of weeks to $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. It got up to $9,500 for over a year. She's going every 2 weeks. And finally, because the pastor had told us, try to keep things under $10,000 if you can, Faith Baptist Fellowship. I said, okay. So we're keeping the deposit or the withdrawals as much as possible. Several times, like for staff bonuses and stuff, she'd get more than that. And the bank fills out their form. We don't care. It's a bank form. We don't have to fill out no form. So 3 years, that was 2003, we stopped. I said, look, I don't want my wife carrying all this cash. Let's go get a couple credit cards, and we just trust a couple guys to be in charge. So we did, and everybody's happy. 3 years later, they come arrest me for structuring. They dragged my wife out of bed after 3 hours of sleep, wouldn't let her get dressed, wouldn't let her put a robe on, wouldn't let her go to the bathroom, took her down to the courthouse in her nightgown in handcuffs. We've been married 40 years. She's got 5 grandkids. She's the sweetest lady you'd ever meet. It totally terrorized her. Still to this day, she's traumatized. It was awful what they did. She's 5 feet tall, a piano teacher, not a threat to anybody. But they treated her like a criminal, threw us in the back of the squad car, took us down to the court, and we said, indicted us for structuring. I said, what on earth is structuring? And the attorneys explained, that's taking your money out of your bank in amounts less than $10,000. So we read over the laws and said, no, hold it. It has to be 2 transactions in 1 day. This was 1 transaction every 12 days. This is not structuring. If mine is structuring, anybody that takes $5 out of their bank once a week for enough weeks to total over $10,000, they are now guilty of structuring. As soon as it reaches over $10,000, you could take $100 a week out of your bank for 100 weeks. Okay, they would say that's 100 counts of structuring. Each one carries 5 years. You get 500 years in prison. Plus, we want the money you took out. That's what happened in my case. They not only put me in prison for 10 years for structuring, they said all that money that was taken out of the bank, legitimate church money used for church bills, taken out of a church bank account. There was nothing we weren't hiding anything. There are no drugs involved. Never have been. I've never taken drugs. I've never tasted alcohol, for heaven's sake. I'm 62 years old. Well, I had NyQuil a couple times. But I've never tasted alcohol. So then they said, we want all that money that was taken out of the bank. We want to seize that money. Well, I don't own anything. I live in a church parsonage. I drive a church van. And so they said, well, we want to seize the church property. The church trustee said, excuse me, hold it. That's church ministry property. No, that's not Kent's property. You can't touch it. No. We want a hearing. We want a trial. Hello, this isn't fair. With no hearing, no trial, no nothing, the judge ruled, no, that is not church property. That is all Kent Hovind's property personally, and yes, you can seize it. So the one U.S. attorney goes down and seizes the church bank account right away. A couple weeks later, he gets on an airplane to fly to Detroit, gets arrested getting off the plane with a Vaseline and a doll in his hand, and ends up hanging himself in his prison cell in Detroit. You can Google J.D. Roy Atchison, A-T-C-H, Atchison. I mean, I feel terrible. He was one of the U.S. attorneys came after me. His wife's the biology teacher in our neighboring town here, Gulf Breeze, Florida. I don't know if she teaches evolution. I would assume so. That's what the textbooks teach. Anyway, so the church trustee said, no, you can't seize that. But they said, yep, you can. The judge said, you can seize the church property. So they start seizing the church property. Well, the trustees put in motion saying, excuse me, not a motion, put a lien on the property. Say, no, you can't take the church property for Kent's tax bill. And so I put in a Liz pendants back a year or so ago when I was up in New Hampshire. They've moved me 20-some times now in chains in this case. I've been moved all over the country. So I was in New Hampshire, and I put in a Liz pendants. I said, look, excuse me, there's litigation still pending. You can't seize this property, because they were wanting to sell the church property. I said, as long as there's litigation pending, it's my obligation to notify people, hey, there's litigation still pending. So Liz Pendants just simply does that. It notices people. There's still a possibility this title may be clouded, even though the courthouse had changed it to say U.S. government. I had litigation pending. So they said, you now have obstructed us from selling this property, and we want to put you in prison for another 100 years for filing this Liz Pendant. So we've been in court now for 3 days and want everybody to pray, Acts 12:5 style. The church prayed for Peter, and God sent an angel and got him out of there.
Well, Dr. Hovind, clearly this amounts to a flagrant and egregiously ruthless government campaign of religious persecution. It's not bad enough that you were unjustly imprisoned for over 100 months, but now you face new trumped-up charges of conspiracy to create mail fraud and criminal contempt by simply exercising your legal right to issue a litigation pending on your ministry property. I mean, this is just clear chicanery.
I certainly think it is, too, and everybody who looks at it says it is. Of course, they will never admit that. They'll say, this has nothing to do with the church. This is simply just obeying the tax laws, blah, blah, blah. They can really put on a good face and fool everybody. But anybody with half a brain and one eye knows this is persecution of a church ministry, which is fine. They're welcome to do that. But they should not lie and say, we're the good guys, we're following the law. No, you're not the good guys, and you're not following the law, and everybody can see that.
Well, Dr. Hovind, you are a very famous and notable creation speaker, Dr. Dino, a very powerful advocate of Bible creationism. You traveled all over the world doing seminars on creation, evolution, and dinosaurs. You debated more than 100 scientists into the ground, I might say, concerning evolution versus creation, and created the well-known 7-part creation series, which was translated into 32 languages. You are a brilliant man who has been gifted by God to present this information in such an amazing way. You've impacted so many lives, mine included. You clearly are a threat to this evil system.
Well, I don't know about the brilliant and all that stuff. I know I want to serve the Lord. I've loved Him for 46 years, pretty much most of the time. And He has been so amazingly good to me. I'm honored to be one of His servants, and even if it means coming to jail. The government wins 99% of their cases because the average jury is just totally enamored, like, whoa, I'm in a federal courthouse with the federal prosecutors. Wow, I have to do what they say. It's really a stacked deck. They are listening to every one of my phone calls, including this one. They're reading all my letters. They're reading all my... I don't get to hear any of their phone calls or read their letters. It's a completely one-sided operation. So I think Christians that have never been persecuted have to wonder, what am I doing wrong? It's not, instead of, Kent, what are you doing wrong? You better look in the mirror and say, what are you doing wrong? If they don't hate you, you must be doing something wrong. I love my country. I love our Constitution. I love our government. I think we have gotten a long ways away from it. I am certainly in favor of obeying the law. I am not a lawbreaker. I think, I've said many times, everybody should obey the law, including the government, especially the government. They should simply obey the law. That's all I'm asking. I'm thrilled that they're going to ask me to tell the whole truth and then try desperately to make me not tell the whole truth. So we'll just pray that God will let the whole truth come out. I have nothing to hide. There's almost no chance of winning in the federal court. I'm aware of that, okay? There's almost no chance of winning on appeal. Nobody wins. Everybody loses, okay? So we have to ignore them and go way over their head. One, go to the Justice Department and say, you guys, would you shut down this case? You're embarrassing the whole country. Shut this case down. Let this man go home, okay? Two, Congress ought to be bombarded. Congress should do a couple of simple things. One, repeal this stupid structuring law. Repeal it. Man, make it retroactive. The IRS apologized for using the structuring. They seized 147 bank accounts last year from people just because they took money out of their own bank in amounts less than $10,000. How stupid is that? So they should repeal, not just apologize, repeal the law. Two, make it retroactive. Three, let everybody out of prison that's ever been in prison for this stupid structuring law. Four, return all the money they took with interest and with penalties. And apologize, okay? 5, pay them damages. I'd say maybe $1 million a year would be good, okay? Look at the damage they've done for this dumb law that Congress passed. It's none of anybody's business, especially the IRS. It's none of their business what you do with your money in your bank account. Who created this monster anyway? Who are these people? Where do they get their authority? For heaven's sake, everybody should obey the law, including them. So I am not a lawbreaker. I'm not a violent man. I'm not hiding anything. We've done everything in open court. I filed a bunch of documents I've never won, but at least I'm doing it openly. I'm not hiding anything. They're listening to my calls. Why don't they let me listen to their calls? Who's hiding stuff? I'm not afraid of the truth. I don't like that one movie, You Can't Handle the Truth. I think they can't handle the truth. The truth is, there are some people who would like America to be a communist-type country. I understand. There have always been those people. There are people. There was a Nazi movement in America in the 1930s. There are people who want to be socialistic. Okay. If you want a communist or a socialistic country, go move to one where they already do that. I'll help you pack. I'll even pay. If that's what you want, don't change this country. We are not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. The Constitution is supposed to be supreme. Everybody's supposed to obey the Constitution, including the judges, including the lawyers, everybody. I'm trying. What have I done wrong? It's amazing to me how many times in the Bible, like many times in the Bible, where people say, look, what have I done? King David said that 4 or 5 times, when he went to kill Goliath. It was his big brother said, why don't you go and take care of the sheep? He said to his brother Eliab, he said, what have I done? So I started writing a book number 38 since I've been in prison, on the cry of the innocent. What have I done? All through history, we see innocent people killed. What did Abel do? His brother Cain killed him. What did Abel do wrong? What did Bathsheba's husband do wrong? He's faithfully serving his king. His king commits adultery with his wife and then has him killed to cover it up. What on earth did Uriah do wrong? Nothing. What did Jesus do wrong? It is normal. It is common for innocent people to be damaged and hindered and killed by wicked people. This is normal. Jesus said to expect it. It's all going to be settled judgment day. There won't be a problem. God will settle all scores. But meanwhile, yes, it's not fun, and it hurts, and I'd rather be home. I've got an 8-year-old grandson that I've never held in freedom.
Well, that's so heartbreaking and so unjust. And speaking of unjust, your federal court judge, Margaret Casey Rogers, appointed by good old George Skull and Bones Bush himself, has quite a reputation as a anti-Christian judge. The history of this case is so outlandish, and the shenanigans by this system, particularly the judge and judicial system, who she was in your first trial and did unnecessary deck stacking against you. It's just an outrage that she has not recused herself for behavior unbecoming of a federal court judge, but then she's never met Sheila Zilinsky, and I'm going to make it my personal goal to expose this evil charlatan. But just the fact she didn't recuse herself is quite incredible.
Exactly right. We have tried to get her recused off the case. She refuses, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, the judge says, no, I'm unbiased, of course. Who would think I'm biased? And so we've asked, and she said no, and it's the end of story. She's going to be the judge on this case. And if the jury finds me guilty on any one, she will hook me and reel me in and give me the absolute max. She can. Okay? That's just the way it's going to go. This is written in the stars. Okay, there's nothing I can do about that. But Congress is supposed to impeach judges that don't rule according to good behavior. The Constitution, which I love and support, says judges are to be appointed for life during good behavior. So it's not my job to judge the judge. It is Congress's job. And Congress, I have asked people, you tell Congress you do a complete investigation of this case from start to finish. One, check out these stupid laws you guys passed and repeal them. This is dumb. There's no other way to say it. It's dumb. Two, check out the U.S. attorneys that you guys are paying. Congress approves the budget. When the U.S. attorneys have enough money to spend $500,000 to come after me and Paul Hansen for mailing a letter is the charge. Something is wrong with our system. They flew in notary publics from Nebraska to testify that they signed a letter. A notary public is self-authenticating. They don't need to do that. Whose money are they spending anyway? Where are they getting this money to fly people around the country? This is pure stupidity, what they're doing. It's insane. There's no question in my mind I am a political target for them. I'm an enemy because I simply tell the truth. I don't know any better than to say, look, this is what the truth is. And that's what every man of God is supposed to do, if I understand it.
You understand correctly, Dr. Hovind. Well, again, it's a flagrant, outright Christian persecution here. We see that going on in America as no other time in history. And as we mock speed into these end times, it's bad enough that America, Kent, is morphing into the Fourth Reich here, but the more appalling thing is the silence is deafening. You would think that every liberty-loving, red-blooded American Christian would be descending on D.C. like a swarm of mad locusts on this case, and pastors would be screaming from the rooftops. But instead, it's crickets chirping in the pulpit, and that is so detestable. We are to lay our lives down for our brethren.
Well, if you look at history, when the Nazis took over Germany, some of the churches were panicking, saying, look, guys, you better tell your people who this Hitler is. You better warn your people. And the German church split right down the middle over, no, it's our duty to obey Hitler. He's God's appointed ruler, blah, blah, blah. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer sounded the alarm. He said, folks, no, it's Christians' duty to obey God first. If it's always the duty to obey the government, then why did Moses' parents disobey the government and save him alive? Why did Jesus' parents, mother and stepfather Joseph, why did they flee to Egypt to avoid getting killed in Bethlehem? No, it's always right to resist unlawful authority. If the government is breaking the law, it is not your duty to obey them. Never has been. There are hundreds of examples in the Bible where people said, hey, we're not going to do this. Absalom was king, and David said, hey, Abishai, get your 2 sons, or whoever the priest's 2 sons were, you carry me a secret message. Well, now hold it, that's against the law. Well, think about it, okay? Our country was started with a couple of guys riding up, carrying a message, Paul Revere and Dawes, against the government rules. You're not supposed to be out after 9 o'clock, curfew. Well, they were out after 9 o'clock delivering the message, the British are coming. We call them heroes. Are they or aren't they? You know, we put pictures of these guys on our dollar bills and say, look, this guy's an American hero. Well, think about what he did. Was he rebelling against the government? Yes. I want to alert people to the danger. We have been supplanted. It's almost too late. Our Constitution is very simple. We should follow it. It's only like 7 pages. Read it. Follow it. The Constitution is a limit on government. It's not a limit on the people. It's a limit on the government. The government, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And the 10th Amendment says, just in case we forgot anything, Government, you can't do that either. Everything is left up to the states. The federal government has no business being involved in welfare, no business being involved in a drug war. If somebody wants to take drugs, let them. I don't take any and won't. But what business is it of the government to say you can't do that? Now, if you want to drive on the highway and endanger my family while you're high on some drug, that may be an issue we could look at. But just simply to arrest people and put them in jail for taking drugs, this is stupid. It is just plain stupid. And I understand full well that they hate me for simply exposing the truth. All the prophets of God in the Bible were hated. Isaiah was hated. Secular history tells us he was put in a log and sawed in half. That's what the Hebrews reference seems to be talking about Isaiah. They were sawn asunder. Jeremiah was persecuted, beaten, thrown down in a well. For what? For simply telling the obvious truth. So if you're not being persecuted in this time and day and age, you're probably doing something wrong. But 100 months is enough. I think people need to say, Congress, do your job. Investigate this case. There needs to be a totally new trial in front of Congress, not in front of any federal judge. I will never win in any federal court. It's a given. Check everything I filed and how it was denied. There's no chance of winning. I'm aware of that. Okay, Congress, you hold a trial. Call in everybody. Call in everybody involved. They want me to tell the truth. Let's tell the whole truth. And then Congress needs to do their job and repeal these stupid laws, and they need to have a hearing. If it's their job to see if the judge should be impeached, it's not my job. And people can call Congress and say, look, what are you doing? Do your job. That's why we pay you all this money. That's why we voted you in. Do your job. I'm not asking for anything to be done illegal. I've not done anything illegal. I'm asking for everybody, including the judge, including the U.S. attorneys, everybody just look, obey the law, please. Everybody, obey the law. Show me which law I broke. If I owe you some money, I'll pay you. What do you want? I wrote all kinds of letters to the IRS and said, what do you want? Here's the law as I read it. What applies to me? Please show me. They never answered. They just come with a SWAT team and arrest me and terrorize my wife and seize the church ministry. If people want to live in a country where they're terrorized by their own government, move to China. You can have it. Move to Russia. You can have it. I have 5 small grandchildren, and somebody has to stand up and say, stop. Enough is enough. And for the record, I feel perfectly fine, other than a cough from the stupid dust in this crazy prison. There's 11 guys sleeping on the floor in here. It's overcrowded. I am not suicidal. And if I die suddenly of mysterious causes, please investigate, because I'm very ready to go home and just leave me alone. I want to go preach. It's not me. It's the cause of Christ. Philippians chapter 1, Paul said, hey, my bonds have fallen out rather to the furtherance of the gospel. I would encourage people to do several things. 1, contact Congress and say, do your job, investigate this case, overturn these stupid laws, make them retroactive, pay the damages, and leave these people alone. Number 2, abolish the IRS. We didn't even have the IRS till the 1930s. Who are these people? What are they supposed to be doing anyway? It has gotten out of control. Just simply abolish it. Stop it. There are many other ways to collect money from the people. Do what we did for the first 160 years. We worked fine that way. Abolish them. Number 3, completely investigate all the evildoers in this case. Call them to justice. I have nothing to hide. I will tell the whole truth if they will let me. Please investigate. Number 4, call heaven. This is a God thing. I want to see God do something amazing in this case. You know, who would even think of opening the Red Sea to let people walk across 900 feet deep water? Why not send a boat? No. God did something never even thought of in the history of humanity. Why would he protect the Hebrew children through the fire? You know, why not put the fire out? Why not make the king die? No. God said, I'll protect you through the fire. God does just off-the-charts amazing stuff. And I've been praying for years in this case that God would use this to get glory for himself. I want this to be just off-the-charts amazing, where everybody says, wow, look what God did for this. It's not me. And they may put me in prison the rest of my life, and believe me, they want to. But I just want God to get the glory. Since I've been in, I've written 37 books, and the one I wrote about the prison system is called The Kennel. I did it under a false name, Elijah Green, but it's okay to tell them now that's me. But The Kennel is up on Lulu.com. It's only like $2 as an ebook, and everybody's loving that one. Just a real short book, 40-some pages. It's a satire against the prison system. This place is a money-making racket. It is not scriptural. In the Bible, you get a fine, a beating, or executed. I have asked hundreds of prisoners that I've been locked up with. I said, if you were offered 5 years in prison or 20 lashes, which would you take? Everyone says, I'll take 20 lashes. I say, okay, number 2, which would be cheaper? Everybody says the lashes. Okay, which would be a better deterrent for you not to do this again? Everybody says the lashes. If the judge says, okay, 20 lashes, and in the Bible you had to lay down right there in the court, and the judge had to watch what their judgment just did to this guy. And they couldn't give more than 40 lashes. Of course, Jesus was not beaten by the Jews. He was beaten by the Romans, and they did not have any such rule. So he may have gotten 100 lashes. We don't know. But they didn't have that rule. But the judge had to see, right now the judge does not see the damage of their sentence. They just give out a number, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and then they go home and eat lunch. They don't see what their sentence just did to this family. If a person is truly a violent criminal and did something wrong, and don't lock them away, execute them. And most of them would prefer to be executed. If somebody rapes your daughter, she does not need to be forced to pay for his groceries for the next 20 years. She needs to watch him fry and then go spit on his grave every day for a few months until she heals up emotionally. She doesn't need to worry about him getting out in 20 years. God's law is perfect. Psalm 19. And under God's law, you get a fine. If you steal my sheep, you pay back 4 sheep. Now, if you steal my sheep, they're going to put you in prison, and you're going to have to pay to feed them. And I still don't get my sheep back.
Yeah, it's pretty ludicrous, that's for sure. So, Kent, where are things currently sitting with the new trial? As everyone knows, this new trial for mail fraud commenced on Monday, March 2nd, and you've been there all week. And what's your sense of where the jury's at here? There's got to be some part of these jury members that think this is just complete insanity. Where do you think things sit currently right now?
I think the jury can see this is crazy. What are you doing? What are you charging these guys with? Mailing a letter? Hello? Why did you call us in here for this? You make us take a week off of work, 2 weeks off of work. I hope the jury sees how absolutely stupid this is. It is pure vindictiveness, pure vengeance, and all I want is the entire truth to come out. So the government will close their case, and then my attorney and Paul Hansen's attorney will start on Monday, and we get to give our defense. Okay, the government said ABC, here's my answer to ABC. Now the problem is, all attorneys actually work for the court. And so have people pray fervently that the attorneys will have what it takes, the courage, the gumption to say, look, we're going to defend our client. They very often sell them out, which is sad, but they do. Because they're worried about working next week. I got to go before this same judge next week. But if the attorneys do their job, then the whole truth will come out, and then the jury probably next week, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I don't know, whenever we're done putting on our defense, the jury will go deliberate and vote guilty or not guilty. If they vote guilty on any one charge, they will never be told what the punishment is. They leave, everybody goes home. A couple months later, they call us in after we sit here in county jail again for a couple months, and then the judge will say, okay, here's the sentence. The law allows me to give up to 20 years, but I'm going to be merciful and only give you 10, or something like that. Okay? Here's just people who have never spent 10 minutes locked up. They give out 10 years like it's water. I've spent 100 months in prison. You're talking to a guy who knows real well what this does to people. And it is evil, it is cruel, it is wrong, it is wicked, and it should be stopped. The whole penitentiary idea, where the word penitentiary comes from, is from the Puritans or the Quakers, I forget. They wanted people to repent. So they said if we lock up these lawbreakers in a jail with nothing but a Bible and leave them there for 3 years, they'll repent. Well, they went crazy. This doesn't work. It's dumb. America has 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners. We have the largest prison system in the world by far. It is nothing but a money-making racket. Who bought my clothes I'm wearing right now? Who paid for the food I'm going to eat? Who pays for the electric bill at this place? Who pays for all these guards? We went down to the federal courthouse for the last 3 days. There have to be 20 or 30 federal employees standing around, guarding the courthouse, watching us, everything we do. U.S. Marshals all over the place, getting who knows how much, $80,000 a year maybe, I don't know. To do what? None of it is necessary. It should all be stopped. The federal court should rule on federal crimes. We now have, I don't know how many federal courts in America, a bunch. I think we could narrow it down, if we follow the Constitution, to probably 4 or 5. Only crimes on federal property, which is Washington, D.C., military bases and post offices and other necessary lands. I mean, read the Constitution. My crime was not, mine wasn't a crime, but what they accused me of was not done on federal property. I was sitting at home in our church ministry. Is that federal property? There's so many levels of deception here that's amazing. It's like the Matrix, you know. It's a giant make-believe world that they have created. And I think everybody needs to be fully aware of the truth and take a stand. Congress can still fix it, I think. But when Hitler came to power in Germany, it got to where even his own elected officials were afraid to oppose him. And Hitler became a dictator. I mean, study history. Joseph Stalin, same thing. They just simply abolished the Congress that is supposed to be ruling. Oh, let's just stop that. We're gonna dictate. That's where America's headed if somebody doesn't do something. So right now, I think it can be stopped. People need to call Congress and say, look, repeal these laws. Number 2, Congress, get back in the box. Follow the Constitution. Congress has no business being involved in welfare. None. Get out of the welfare business. You have no business constitutionally being involved in a drug war. Stop. Get out of the drug war. It's not your business. Just stop. I could, in a half hour, list enough things to cut the budget down to 5% of its current amount and lay off 95% of the federal employees, which, of course, makes them panic. Like, what would I do for a living? Okay, how about, like, get a job and work and produce something? Government, by its nature, doesn't produce anything. It governs. And we need that. God-ordained government. But what on earth are we doing when half the people work to tell the other half of the people what to do? Have we gone nuts? How did we get this, what is it, $700 trillion debt now, or whatever it really is? People have done numbers on that. They say it's only $17 trillion. Yeah, right. You get the real numbers, and it's not payable. So I love my country. I love my government. I love my Lord. I love my family. I'm not a rebel. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I've been married 41 years. I've never hit my wife. She's 5 foot tall. I'm 6'2", so it wouldn't be much of a fight. No, I'm not a troublemaker. I'm simply advocating, hey, look, everybody, here's our Constitution. Follow the law. I terrorize those people because of that right there. I'm an advocate of everybody, including them, obeying the law. Just follow the law. I think Congress, they tried to investigate the IRS, and they just plead the fifth. They need to completely investigate what the IRS did to me starting back in 1996. It's all up on 2peter3.com. It's all up on freekenthovind.com. And I will answer any questions anybody has. If somebody thinks I broke some law, please show me the law. If they think I owe them some money, show me what I owe you, and I'll pay you when I can. They said I did not withhold taxes from employees. A, we don't have any employees. B, churches don't have to do that. C, we were not on federal land. There was no law broken. But that was a 5-year sentence. Secondly, they said you structured your transactions. Okay. A, we did not structure any transactions. It's supposed to be 2 or more in one day. We did 1 every 12 days. There was no structuring. That was 10 years of the sentence, but it overlapped the 5. The third thing and last thing they accused me of is threatening or obstructing an IRS agent in trying to do his duty. They gave me A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, or something like that, a whole bunch of things I did, only one of which might be illegal. The rest are not illegal at all. It's all up on one of my motions I filed. I think it's number 365. Rudy Davis, if you go to Lone Star 1776, he's on a YouTube channel, Lone Star 1776. He can get you in touch with all the court documents. But I have filed stuff. I've done everything openly. I've not tried to hide anything. When they came and arrested Jesus at night, he said, what are you doing coming at night? Hey, I've done everything openly. What is this? You know, you love the darkness rather than light because your deeds are evil. John 3:19 and 20. They are evil. What they're doing to me is evil. And I don't have any power against them. All I can do is what Gideon did in the Bible, shine the light and make a whole lot of noise. Noise and light. That's all he had. And here's what happened, and this is exactly what I want to happen in my case. Okay. God said, Gideon, the enemy's attacking you. You got like 1 million of these Midianites coming after you. And so Gideon sounds the alarm. Everybody come help. 32,000 show up. God says, that's too many. Tell everybody who's afraid to go home. 22,000 go home. 10,000 left. God said, Gideon, that's too many. Tell everybody go get a drink and watch how they drink. If they lift the water up to their mouth and look around, they're alert, keep them. If they stick their head in the water to get a drink, send them home. 9,990 or 9,700 of them stuck their head in the water. God said, send them home. 300 were people who were not afraid and who were alert. God said, that's all you need. Now, you 300, shine light, make noise, and the enemy ended up fighting each other. Gideon did nothing. I am praying that Congress will get after these folks so hard that Congress will fight the IRS and get them all fighting each other. I want to go back to preaching. I want to go home and be grandpa. I'm tired of this. I want to go home. I want them to pay me a bunch of damages and leave me alone.
Yes, it is time for you to go home, Dr. Hovind. Enough is enough. And I guarantee you, I have a very robust audience tonight, mainly comprised of Spirit-filled believers. And we, as of Monday of next week, we're going to be making some noise. We're going to be lighting up those phone lines at the Department of Justice. We're going to inundate the congressman. And also, we are having a one-day fast and intercessory prayer set up on Wednesday, March 11th. Folks at weekendvigilante.com. We're going to make some noise, Kent. Mark our words. I know they're going to kick you off the phones. So in the waning moments, what can people do, Dr. Hovind? In your opinion, how can my listeners support you?
Well, honestly, I want God to get the glory. I hope the gospel goes out to millions that have never heard it because of this prosecution and persecution. In prayer, I get tons of letters. That's such a blessing. There's so many guys in here that do not get any mail whatsoever. And it's almost embarrassing for me to go pick up my stack of mail every day, and they look at me like, hungry dog. I'm sorry, I didn't write any of these, And so I'm putting up a list of names of young converts that I've led to the Lord, and on the website, 2peter3.com. So they can write some letters to people that need letters. There's a lot of people that need encouragement in here. If they knew that people were petitioning Congress to help shut this stupid system down, scale it back, they've tried to pass a law that says for your first-time nonviolent offense in federal system, right now you serve 87% of your sentence. They tried to pass a law and say, hey, let's make it 65%. And that has never made it through Congress. Somebody else has tried to introduce a law every year that said, let's make it 50%. Hey, first time, nonviolent, send them home after 50%. If people were just working on that, that's a step in the right direction. It'll be much better when we can finally do it God's way and say, okay, you're convicted of this crime. Do you want a beating or do you want prison? Or do you want to pay back 4 times? That's the Bible, restitution. Read Exodus chapter 20, 21, 22, and it's all through there. God's law is simple. All of God's laws will fit in one book that you can carry with 2 fingers. All of our laws in America wouldn't fit in this room I'm in. What have we done? It's crazy. Nobody, no person on the planet completely understands the IRS laws. It can't be. It's indecipherable. There's a book out called 3 Felonies a Day where this lawyer said, look, every American is committing 3 felonies a day. There are so many contradictory laws now that you cannot obey them all. You simply cannot. This is what they do in the Soviet Union, which is why the people just become lawless. Okay, ignore the government. Get around them. Avoid them. I'm not lawless. I'm not a rebel. I'm not a tax protester. I love my country. I'm trying to do what's right. I pay every tax I owe. So I would tell people to please, Congress created this mess, and Congress can fix it. Tell them, do your job. Most of the laws they pass need to simply be repealed. Just, guys, what are you doing? Why are you passing new laws every day? Why don't you spend all your time repealing some of these laws and scale back to a constitutional system? Let the states handle it. If Alabama wants to outlaw drugs, okay, and you want to take drugs, then move to Mississippi or wherever they legalize them. I don't care. And if I don't want to live next to a drug addict, I can move to a state where they're illegal. But what is the federal government doing involved in this anyway? It's common sense 101. Go back to the Constitution. Make everybody obey it. That's real simple. So people can be petitioning Congress. They can be petitioning heaven. I think they should be contacting people in foreign countries to contact our government to say, look, you guys are an embarrassment to the planet. Would you fix your system over there? You're embarrassing us. People should become alert. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, the Bible says. We need to understand what's happening. In the book of Ezra and several other places, it says God gave them men of understanding. It says Abigail was a beautiful countenance and a woman of understanding. We need some women to understand what's going on and teach their kids and teach their neighbors, hey, here's what you do. Here's the truth. There is a war going on, and by the time most people wake up and realize there's a war going on, it's going to be over. By the time the German church woke up and realized, whoa, Hitler's a bad guy, it was too late. He already had dictator powers, and he was throwing people in prison and burning them and smoking them in Auschwitz and killed 6 million of them, and it was too late to stop because the dumb Christians were too slow to catch on of what's going on. It's time to say, look, hold it, stop. Right now, we can still do everything by simply take a lawful process of saying, look, obey the laws, everybody. Congress, do your job. Scale it way back. We've created a police state, and it's probably intentional design on somebody's part, some of these pinky in the brain kind of folks who want to rule the world. I understand there's always been Napoleons and Hitlers who want to be dictators of the world. I understand. We've got them here, too. Okay? Well, they need to move to a country where they do that. They don't need to ruin this one, too. So encourage them, help them pack, and look, move to another country, please. You don't agree with the way we do it here? We understand. Go do it your way someplace else. My case is a classic example of what needs to be fixed. I do not have any legal knowledge. It frustrates me that I don't understand this process. I don't understand anything about cooking. My wife is a fabulous cook. I don't want to learn. I have enough to do. I'm good at a couple things, and I'm happy doing those things, and I have no intention of learning how to cook or sew. I'm not interested. I cannot comprehend all this legal stuff. I have tried. I can't get it. It's outside my scope. So, but those who do, I have said, Kent, you've broken no laws. This is persecution, and there's stuff all over the website about what I've done. So if some Christians are accusing me of breaking a law, say, look, you better read the book of Job pretty carefully. Job's 3 friends, Bildad, Eliphaz, and Zophar, they accused Job of doing something wrong, and for 35 chapters, they argued with Job. Job, you must have sinned, and I've got people out there who claim to be Christians saying, well, Kent must have done something wrong, he didn't obey this, he didn't do this. Believe me, there's Christian critics of Kent Hovind, which is, I understand, but they better read what God said in Job 42. God said to Eliphaz, you and your buddies are wrong, you're stupid, you judged Job inappropriately. You're not right. Go tell him you're sorry and bring him some money. Job got back double. Okay? I have told God many times, I said, God, look, this is the 2000s now, okay? You're rich. I think more than double is appropriate. How about 100 times? What they took from me, how about give it back to me 100 times over? That'd be appropriate. Come on, God, show the world what you can do. I think you know you can trust me with it. I've never had a new car. I don't live high on the hog. I live in a church parsonage. There were 10 offices in my house, for heaven's sake. Ask any woman how they'd like that, half the ministry in their house. Try that sometime. We're not trying to build a giant multi-million-dollar, complex and become famous. I just want to preach the gospel and win souls. That's all. So encourage people to petition God. Say, God, this is enough. Stop this. Pray specifically that God completely exposes all of the evil in my case. I don't know who called for this persecution. I do know one of the people, it's clearly in the record, was the Hortons at Pensacola Christian College that we live right next to. We moved there so my wife could go to college there and get her degree. They have a great college, a great music program. We live right next door, which is maybe the problem. I've been told they want my property. Okay, well, buy it off me. I'll move. What do you want? Maybe they started this. I don't know. Certainly the IRS needs to be completely investigated on this, especially the agents in my case. I think they broke so many laws. I think there needs to be a full and complete investigation. When they came in 2004, they forced me off the property with a SWAT team and forced my little wife to open the safe. They took out $42,800 and some dollars in cash. Because we have a lot of people on our staff, a lot of projects going on, and so that was with 40 people on staff, it's no big deal. And so Scott Snyder, the IRS agent, said, I'm taking this as evidence of a crime. Evidence of a crime? What? Well, several months later, they create a civil tax bill in the civil side of the IRS for the exact amount, to the penny. And they applied that money seized as evidence for a crime to a civil tax bill. Does anybody see anything wrong with this? Hello? I think there needs to be a full investigation, and he needs to be made to pay that back with interest and penalties, and he needs to be completely investigated. They're completely investigating me. What's he afraid of? If he did nothing wrong, then submit to Congress, not a federal judge. Let's go to Congress and have a complete investigation. And he'll do what Lois Lerner did. I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I can predict it. I don't know what I did to this guy, but he's been on my case for 15 years trying to find something wrong. He helped put me in jail for 10 years and wants to do it again for another 100 years. Why on earth do the federal courts allow potential witnesses, he is called to be a witness in this case. He's getting up there testifying often in court, which is fine. But he's also sitting in the courtroom at the government's table the whole time. Every other witness is excluded, has to leave the room. You can't hear the other testimonies. Does anybody see anything wrong with that, having a witness sit in the courtroom the whole time?
Oh, I see a lot wrong with that. There are a whole lot of things very, very wrong with this entire case from the onset until now, and it's a clear case again of just flagrant persecution, clear chicanery. The IRS has always been attacking non-501c3 ministries. 501c3 churches are, in my opinion, an outright abomination. They are dictated to by government that to keep their tax-exempt status, well, they better acquiesce to this globalist satanic regime. They're told what to preach from the pulpits. They are told, oh no, you're not going to preach on abortion or homosexuality or the right to bear arms. You better be nice little, good, compliant little minions, and you better do what you're told. Separation of church and state. Yeah, right. It's such an outrage. You alluded to Gideon's army. God does not depend on large numbers of people to accomplish his goals. Dr. Hovind, I want to encourage you on behalf of myself and my listeners and others who love you, and we want to say one man and God is a majority. You have our love and support. You've impacted so many of us. You were talking about the New World Order when no one was awake, essentially, and you're such an inspiration. We are going to make a lot of noise. You have our word of honor, sir. We love you. This isn't over, and I'm going to be on this thing like a pit bull as well as many others, and I just want to encourage you, Dr. Hovind. You really are just truly an inspiration, sir.
Thank you so much. This touches me more than I can explain. Knowing that people care, you think how many people in the Bible had Joseph thrown into prison by his own brothers, and nobody cared for 13 years. Nobody wrote him. Nobody visited him. I have such amazing support out there. It's such a blessing, and thank you. I didn't ask for any of this, and I don't like any of it. I don't want any of it, but it's here. It's on my plate. I got to eat it. So pray that God will get the glory through this, and that the gospel will go out further. That's all I want.
Yes, sir. Amen. Well, and Philippians 1:29 says, "For unto you it is given in the behalf of Christ not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for his sake." And Psalms tells us that righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. Love and faithfulness go before us. Kent, God bless you for all your work. Next Wednesday, again, we're having that intercessory prayer and fast. Again, we're going to make some noise, brother, and I believe that God is going to move very powerfully. We're going to believe it. I know they're cutting you off in 67s. Dr. Hovind, thank you for coming on the program today. God bless you, sir.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for letting me tell this story. I think everybody needs to hear this. It's not me. It's the cause of Christ. Thank you so much.
Folks, all of Kent Hovind's sites are there, linked at weekendvigilante.com, freekenthovind.com, bookmark that. That's also linked there, as well as 2peter3.com. You can see all the information there. Folks, next week we're going to do a phone bomb. We're going to light up the phones for the next month if we have to, with Congress, Department of Justice. We're going to be doing that. So that information and the numbers to call are going to be linked there at weekendvigilante.com. And again, bookmark Wednesday, March 11th. We're going to have a fast and prayer for Kent Hovind. And at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, I have a conference call for everyone across the nation to phone in and pray with us. We're going to have our intercessors on the line. We're going to be praying, and we're going to be believing God for some amazing things. So, folks, thank you so much to all the listeners at Worldwide Christian Radio for tuning into the program tonight, and everyone else that tuned in. Please, folks, get behind Kent Hovind. I really appreciate that. And again, all that information is going to be detailed there Monday on my website, weekendvigilante.com. Folks, good night and God bless. Folks, today's show is brought to you by Penny LeClaire Oils. Being prepared for a crisis is as old as the story of Joseph and the 7-year famine. And finding someone you can trust out there is key. I trust Penny LeClaire, and one of her specialties is oils. Oils are God's own handiwork dating back to Bible times. I use Penny's full line of essential oils because oils are the protective mechanisms of the plant and work with the body, protecting us from bacteria, viruses, and parasites, supporting our own immune system the way God designed. Our body is a healing machine given the right support. My grandma used to say that cure is in the cupboard. So whether it's anointing, healing, deliverance, protection, or preparedness, get away from Big Pharma. Considering what we're up against, it's imperative to create your own home medicine cabinet today. Call Penny at 585-943-8698 or go to my website and click on her ad and tell her the Weekend Vigilante sent you.